I tell you, for me, there's nothing quite like a person that's miserable, starving, alone, and stranded that just makes me say, wow, what a great story. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back today to talk about one I don't think I've talked about before in the 6 years I've been doing this, and that is the survival fiction genre. Now, survival is something I don't really talk about a ton because while I love it, I haven't read a ton of books, but the ones that I have left a big impression on me. I've been watching the TV series Survivor for the first time, but that's a long story. Go back 2 weekly updates ago, the one where I've got the Survivor background. That's the one where I'll tell you that story. But it's got me really thinking more about some survival stories I really like because I do love survival as a subgenre. It's a lot of fun because, again, you like to see people overcome great odds, work hard, and come through sometimes clean on the other side. It's very encouraging. It gives you the whole thing about overcoming great odds, the human spirit to overcome. That's just something that we just never can get enough of, I think, as humans, and myself included in that. I will conclude myself as a human today. But I gotta say up first, guys, this will not include any contests or dystopian events. You're not gonna see any Hunger Games, no Battle Royale, no Long Walk, etc., etc. This will be more on, stranded or marooned in a place, with no established civilization or very limited resources and the need for food and water and shelter to survive and basically conquer that environment to stay alive. That's really what I'm focused on here. I've got 8 books that I really love, and I would recommend to anybody if these are things that you are interested in. I'm going to kind of talk about why each one, because they are all just a little bit different. But the reason that they always just kind of resonate with me because, again, I think about what would I do in that scenario? Well, I would be sitting on my sofa in air conditioning. I wouldn't put myself in this scenario. That's what I say the whole time watching Survivor. Like, oh, what would you do? I'm like, I wouldn't be there. I like air conditioning. It's really awesome. Let's start with the gold standard, I think. This is The Lord of the Flies, William Golding. I mean, when you come to a story about, okay, you are shipwrecked or you are marooned somewhere and you're with a group of people, you're going to try to establish a society if you feel like you've got no hope in anyone coming to rescue you. This is really one of those sense of community. You're all in this together. Things can go really well at first. It feels like everyone does feel like they've got each other's backs. We all have to pitch in, do our part to make this work. Over time, I'm doing more work than this person. I'm doing more work than that person. That person's not doing a good job of being a leader. I should be the leader, and that lust for power and instincts will take over. That greed does kind of sink in. But I feel like with Lord of the Flies, it just feels like there are so many things that still copy this format so much. Like there's that show, The 100, everybody liked that was on the CW. Not everybody, but they had a very big fan base for a while. And I was like, oh, it's just sci-fi Lord of the Flies. I mean, there's so many things I could think that you get applied, but just, okay, we're going to use the Lord of the Flies where you've got a bunch of young kids stranded in this situation. What do they do to survive, and how will society eventually fall apart around them, this new society they've built? Because, not because kids are stupid, but because that's just human nature. It does seem to be the way that things do go. Not to get a little too grim on you here early, but we talk about Lord of the Flies, there's tons of things that you can bring up here. How about Robinson Crusoe? This is by Daniel Defoe. It feels like the origin of the genre, right? I mean, it's wrote a long time ago. I read this. I saw the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks when it was brand new, like in the year 2000 or so. Is it really that old? Is that 25 years old already? Anyway, that movie, I just had so many people tell me that it was not really a straight adaptation, but it was based a lot off of Robinson Crusoe, and that's what made me read it. And I think this just nails everything, dealing with that isolation and the solitude of being stranded. You found a way to feed yourself. You found clean water. You found shelter. You found a way to stay alive. It's about, is anyone ever going to come save me, or do I have to find a way off this myself, or am I just going to be here until I die? Am I just going to be alone forever? And what you do to kind of give yourself some sort of companionship, because as humans, we have that need to make a human connection, to share things, to talk. And talking to yourself only goes so far. But I think that's one that I would probably like to revisit because, I don't know, I really remember liking it a lot, but I can't remember a ton about it, except I was like, yeah, this is just like Castaway. In fact, I would be, if there was this Defoe's estate, I think I'd be suing if they didn't get the rights to do it, because there was a lot of similarities that I saw in there. Now I'm going to put I Am Legend by Richard Matheson on here, even though I know it does kind of deal with, there was an established civilization. Obviously your supplies are dwindling, or it's too dangerous to go and get them because of the evil elements in that book. But I think with this is it's staying alive when you're the last man on Earth, and there's monsters literally right outside your door every single night. I think that's something where the need, again, for human interaction, and you start to wonder if you're the real monster, because this newly established society views Dr. Robert Neville as the actual villain of that story, and it really kind of makes you think. It's a little different kind of a survival tale because it is very much survival horror, and there's great evil outside of his door, at least looking at it from the human aspect. That's what it is. But it flips it a little bit on its head and makes you see, hey, maybe you're not really trying to survive. Maybe you are the last remnants of a forgone age, and that's a different type of survival, I do think. But that's very much one that's a little more horror, a little more action, I think. But that's a great story, so I wanted to include it here. Same with The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Talked about this one right after Mr. McCarthy passed away. And I think what really resonated with me in this story is even in an apocalyptic event, I can never say that word fast, I think that a parent will do anything to protect their child, and things that you would think is an unspeakable act, right before this all went down. And this is, again, the need to continue to get supplies, to continue to keep yourself armed, keep yourself safe, because when society falls, man-on-man crime is going to be the worst thing going on, much more before nature starts to say, hey, you know what, there's less of them. Let's move ourselves into the cities and start getting some snacks now. But no matter how hopeless things are, I think love and family will persist is really the theme of the story, because it is so bleak, it is so hopeless. And as long as they've got each other, the man and the boy, as long as they've got each other, I feel like that goes through them wanting to survive for each other. But again, I think with this it's the dad shit, as I call it. And the thing is, I read this book before I had kids, and it got me emotionally. I'm not sure I could handle it now, having kids, because it has some really deep dad shit in it, really good. But the things that they will do to survive, very messed up. But you put yourself in that situation, and someone's coming to stab your kid with a knife because he's got a can of food. How would you react as a parent? I think that's something that gets into the visceral side of it, when our animal instincts come out in our survival setting. Talking about animal instincts coming out, I read this for the first time like 2-3 years ago. Blew me away. The Call of the Wild by Jack London. Now, this is obviously a classic. I feel like everyone had read it before I read it, and I went into it being like, I don't know, a survival story, basically. You're out in the wilderness, but you're from the dog's point of view. I don't know how this will go. It went great. I loved it. It blew me away. I was very emotionally invested, but I love it. It's just, your survival instincts kicking in via your ancestral memory. And you think about all of our descendants, ancestors, and at one point they were probably at the beginning of some kind of society or civilization, or trying to establish some way to survive, their tribe, wherever they grew up, whatever their setting was. I think that's something that we can all relate to as humans, reading about this dog, tapping into the ancestral memory of what it's like to go back, because, dogs were just wolves before they found out we had couches and fire and food. That's kind of the way we look at these things. And going back to that wolf instinct, what Buck goes through in that story, very good. The point of view from a dog is much easier than it sounds, too. Works really well. But, conflict, but this one's the conflict about going from, okay, this dog grew up in established civilization, being fed, being taken care of, having a home, and then this dog is thrust into the wilderness and having to learn how to adapt and survive, and starts to work its way up to this hierarchy there of all of the animals in the forest. It's a great story, and I think it's wonderful for all ages. And again, I'm embarrassed it took me as long as it did to read it, because it's just an absolutely gorgeous story, and it will leave you a little bit choked up right here, I do think. The one that kind of started this whole discussion was we watched that movie called Flow. It's an animated movie about these animals that are surviving on a ship after there's a great tsunami flooding event. And basically, I'd said, hey, this kind of makes me think of Life of Pi by Jan Martel, but without humans in it. And me and my kid really started talking about how much I love survival stories, so like that. And that's kind of what inspired this whole thing. That's what got me to watch Survivor that I've avoided watching for 25 years. So with this, I think survival at sea is pretty much next to impossible. If you don't have any kind of supplies at all, you better learn how to fish quick. But the thing is, you can live a few days without food. You can't live a few days without water. And the cruel thing about the ocean is there's water all around you and you can't drink it. That's what's really cruel about it. But I think this one is you take something that's already absolutely impossible odds. This kid is stuck on this boat out in the middle of nowhere, no help in sight. He's got very limited rations. But he's sharing the vessel with one of history's greatest predators, and the Bengal tiger. So it's one of those stories. I think it's not only does he have to kind of tame that, but he also has to fight, the will to go on, the will to keep going one more day, And I think with this one, if you have any kind of spiritual beliefs or a faith-based religion that you follow at all, I think it's one of the stories that really, really will get you, because it's about never giving up, and that your God is going to see you through and you never lose faith, even in the darkest of moments. Pi has these moments where he could throw it all away and be like, hey, why have you forsaken me? But he doesn't. I think it's just one of those stories of perseverance and overcoming incredible odds. And I mean, again, surviving shipwrecked in the middle of the ocean, no land in sight, with limited food's already one thing, but now you got to share this tiny little boat with a tiger. That's some scary stuff. Absolutely amazing story, you guys. That might be my favorite one on this list. That book just really moved me in so many different ways. I love The Martian by Andy Weir. I know a lot of people kind of got sick of it when the movie kind of came out and it got really, really big and everyone was reading the book and you could buy it at airports and all that stuff. And Andy Weir's kind of made a career out of that at this point. The Martian, for me, I love that, because the only thing I think that's more difficult for humanity to survive in than the ocean is space. I mean, space doesn't play. It's scary. Space is very scary. You cannot live in it. And I think what I loved about this story was the problem solving through science. Okay, he's got limited food. He's got to try to find a way about that. He's got limited water. He's got to try to make a way to make these things last until this rescue mission can make it to him. Because, hey, Mars is pretty far away. But how to innovate with seemingly zero resources, I think that's really the crux of what makes survival stories work for me. How do I get food? How do I get water? How do I get shelter? That's how it all goes. And this is long before, this is a planet we are just alone. This isn't even dealing with, okay, well, what if you got to survive the elements, the dangers in the forest and things like that. The resilience of the human spirit to simply hang on. I think that's what makes The Martian really great, because this character wants to give up so many times. And it is that, let's just, let's think about tomorrow. Let's just think about tomorrow right now. Let's not think about a couple hundred days when they're supposed to maybe come get me. Let's just think about tomorrow. Let's get through tomorrow first. And I love the science aspect of it and showing that, hey, even when it seems like it's just, there's no way I can scrape across these tiny little bit of rashes I have until help does come, and just finding a way, damn it. It's really, really great story. And I think it's one that, great adaptation, obviously, but the book, guys, read the book. It's quite enjoyable. I think if you like the movie, you'll love the book just as much, if not more. It is a really, really great story, and one of the greatest survival stories, I think, on this, because, like I said, to me, I look at the ocean and space kind of similarly. Obviously, the space is infinite in size, but with it, it's like the elements everything wants to kill you. You're not supposed to be there, and that's what makes that story really, really great. The odds that, is it Watney? Is that his name? Overcomes in that story. It's been a while since I read it. Lastly, this one might seem a little cruel, but I have to talk about survival horror, because I think that is a genre all its own. The gaming franchises out there, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, things like that, have really kind of increased how much people are aware of survival horror as a genre now. But a book that I think should be on this list, even though it doesn't take place on like a deserted island or anything like that, it is very much in a place with civilization, is The Ruins by Scott Smith. Now, this story, I wanted to include it here because a big factor in any survival story is we have no medicine. We have limited medicine supplies. We can't. You can die of like a fever. That's something that obviously our ancestors had to deal with before we had aspirin. But with this, the medical side of things, there's splints in this. There is amputations in this. There's setting bones. There are surgically removing things and not having the proper tools or medicine or anything to keep your hands clean while you're trying to do these sorts of things. That's something you have to use what you have around you in this very, very limited space that these people are stuck in. Now, this is obviously a breakdown of human relationships. I think that's always going to have great stress, great duress in these situations are going to make human relationships break down quick, and you're going to start to go a little mad, especially when you're thrust into the situation and there's something trying to kill you the entire time that you are there as well. And you feel like you're already racing the clock because you got limited water, you don't have any food, this thing's trying to kill you, this place is surrounded, they won't let you get out of it, you're screwed. I think this one's very much a metaphor of man versus nature, which I think also plays into the survival genre. I think that's a big one because nature is very, very aggressive and carnivorous in this, and that's what makes the story even more scary because it feels like you're on a racing clock and you can't ever relax because, hey, look, I looked down, oh no, it got me, But I also think something about this is you always will have someone that wants to be a leader. Whenever you have a situation like this, someone has to step up and take the lead. And if others are willing to let them do that, it's easier, or if you have to compete for it, it doesn't matter. In the end, someone has to take the leadership role. And I think it's Jeff in this story takes the leadership role, and it shows kind of what happens when maybe the wrong person took the leadership. Now, this guy was an Eagle Scout. He's about to be a doctor, so he seems like the rational choice, but he makes a lot of bad decisions that really, really backfire badly. And I think that's something when you talk about a group of people in a stranded situation and they try to establish some kind of quick society or just something like this where we got to survive until we get rescued. And if you pick the wrong person to lead that party, things can go really, really wrong. So you think several times, yeah, I can't say that I would have made a different decision, but it was the wrong decision. And that's what makes that book just a little bit more scary. And I think something that deserves to be on a list like this, even though it does take place in an established civilization. But you know what? You are cut off from it. You got no water. You got no shelter. Well, you got some shelter, but do you really want to go down there? Read it and find out. Great book. Very underrated, I do think. I really, really think so. So, guys, those are the ones that I think of. I'm sure there's more I'm not thinking of. That's where I go with it. But, guys, if there are any I'm missing, I obviously love this genre, and I haven't read as much of it as I would like to. So if you have suggestions, please let me know some down below because I'd love to add them to my list. Have you read any of these? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you like this genre at all? I have no idea if this is something that BookTube even gives a damn about besides me, or they maybe even don't even think of it. It's like I said, if I hadn't started talking about Life Apply and started watching Survivor, I'm not sure I would have thought of this, but it is something I do love. I love a good survival story. Good ending or bad, they are really, really something that makes the pages go by really, really quick for me. So hit me in the comments, guys, and let me know what you're thinking, and I will talk to you there.